Hi Tarot family and welcome. It's another totally rainy day here on the tropical island where I'm at, so it's a perfect time for me to record another video for all of you, and I hope that you enjoy it. Today's video is going to be about your blessings and your challenges and how to make the most of them. And I'm also going to do a little experiment and see if we can find out what thing or object or place is your lucky charm. So with that in mind, I'm going to draw 4 cards. I'm not going to explain what they mean. I just want you to pick the cards that you feel, or the card rather, that you feel most drawn to. Okay, so let's see what we've got. Okay, first we've got the dice card. Next we've got the mountain card. Next we've got the clover card. And finally we've got the lady card. And I'm going to associate each of these with a shell. This one, it may look kind of ordinary, but depending on which angle you look at it from, it's kind of got a cool little flair, a little swerve there that I found kind of intriguing. So that's there. We've got my favourite little gothic black shell there. Let's show you a look at it. Yeah. Wonderful. Wonder what sea creature lived in there. I've got this adorable piece of coral that just happens to be in the shape of a heart. And finally, we've got this little patchy pink shell, which I just think is really nice. Okay, so I will take a deep breath, and you can with me now as well. And go with whatever your intuition calls you to, and then you can jump down in the timestamps below to find out more about your blessings and challenges and how to make the most of it all. Okay, thanks so much for joining me. I look forward to reading for you. Welcome to Group 1, where you've chosen the dice card, and here what that represents is that you are really just quite a lucky person. Maybe you have good luck in games of chance and things like that, but I don't recommend gambling ever, and definitely not to you, as we will see here, unless you know that that's really the right thing for you. But what I would say is that your lucky charm, being a dice, or a die as the singular is called, why don't you find a very beautiful set of dice. It doesn't have to be literal dice. It could be a charm on a bracelet or on a necklace, something you keep attached to your wallet or your phone. But if it is a real die, you might want to experiment with seeing how, like, if you have some decisions to make, you could number them 1 to 6 and then roll the die and see what comes out. Again, use your common sense with this. Some of you may have read the book Dice Man. It's a long time since I read it. It was quite some dark paths that took, but like anything, you can take something too far. But the idea was that this guy, he decided to start living by the dice. So whenever he had a choice to make, he would do this, but he would also include some really horrible options just to make it a bit more, I don't know, exciting perhaps, certainly for the book, I guess. And yeah, he would live his life like that. And whilst I'm not suggesting you do that, it might be interesting to see, you know, with decisions that, I wouldn't say do this with really important things in your life, at least not till you've tested out that this works for you. And of course, you would consult your intuition and everything like that. But it might be a fun way of making choices that perhaps, you know, probably don't have a big difference, but, you know, it's maybe a case of, oh, you know, do I go down this literal path or that literal path, you know, to this restaurant or that restaurant or cafe? And, you know, if you only had two decisions, you could assign the numbers 1 to 3, for instance, is the left-hand path, and 4 to 6 is the right-hand path. And see if it, you know, of course you'll never really know the option that you didn't make, but maybe the dice will help you to find synchronicity and good luck in the path that you choose. You know, things like that. I would suggest experimenting and seeing, did something special come? And when you throw the dice, does it, you know, does it reflect your feeling of what you want to do? And also, I would consider spending some time with the dice, holding them or it in your hand and putting your energy into it the same way a tarot reader would do with their tarot deck, so that there's a kind of a connection between your energy, between you and the tangible objects. So dice is your lucky charm. Now let's go on to find your blessings and your challenges, or you can also say your strengths and your challenges. I've decided to lay all the cards out in advance because I'm working with a smaller space at the moment and I'm trying to make it look neat and pretty for you. So yeah, I hope that this is okay for you. So we'll start with the challenges first, and then we will move, and then also some advice on how to overcome them. And now I'm going to mess up the beautiful arrangement that I've done. And maybe we'll look at one card at a time because it's such different imagery. So here we have the 7 of Swords as your challenge. And the 7 of Swords is really about kind of knowing when to do things by yourself, when to leave a situation and when to stay, when to work together with someone and when to go your own way. So I feel that maybe you have some difficulties with that sometimes. And when we have a look at the clarification card, the devil is about what traps us, and it may suggest that you have an addictive personality as well. So that's why I want you to be very careful about the dice and don't gamble. But even if you don't, gambling is never really a good idea unless it's just done for fun without money, or I don't know. I'm not a fan of gambling, it's too risky. But anyway, yeah, so this suggests to me that you can sometimes get in situations with, say, a relationship and you just don't know whether to walk away or not, and maybe you stay in them way longer than you really need to. And I mean, one of the interesting things with the devil card that you can maybe see here, let's have a look, is that there are chains around the man and woman's neck, but it's kind of big enough that they could slip them off by themselves. So there is that kind of thing that they're deciding to stay chained or allowing themselves to be chained by their addictions or by their feeling of need, codependency, whatever it might be. And you know, it can also go the other way as well. You know, perhaps because you've seen that side of yourself in the past, there can be this other side of you that's afraid to trust other people and maybe trust yourself in relationships, and that might maybe, or certain situations, doesn't always have to be relationship based, but this sort of lack of trust in your own ability to judge what is kind of good for you and what isn't might, you know, cause barriers for you in having successful relationships, or really taking the reins and deciding to do something that's important to you, and sort of to be vulnerable as well. Like, if we can see this card, we see that the figure in the card here, he's wearing kind of a weird mask, and so that's what's making me think about vulnerability. You know, how can you be the white swan and know what to trust, as opposed to the kind of crows that are there to bring doubts into your mind. So I feel that that's maybe a challenge that you have to go through in your life, or at least currently. Things don't have to be forever or anything like that, but this is perhaps something that you have struggled with. And if that is the case, then the Four of Wands is your advice card for how to overcome it. And here, this card is really about talking about your friends, your family, people that you can trust. Not say if you're worried about the situation with your partner or someone that you've met who's new, try to get opinions from those that you know and love you, because sometimes they're going to be able to see more clearly than you are when it's time for you to take a leap of faith, or rather when it's time to withdraw and step away. And again, if you're having any problems with addictive behavior and it's something that's, you know, really kind of becoming unpleasant for you, you can rely on other people to help you. Don't suffer in silence. Like, trust those who are around you, have proven themselves to be good people who really care about you. Get support from good people in both those situations. That's the advice from the tarot there. And in terms of the Star as your other challenge card, the Star is really about hope for the future, about dreams, and it's usually a very lucky card to see. And I think here the thing is that sometimes, and it might be it's related to the Seven of Swords that we've seen before, you can kind of have difficulties trusting in your lucky star, or knowing perhaps you have all these different hopes and dreams, but then you feel quite conflicted because we see the Five of Wands here. And in this case, I think the Five of Wands are all about inspiration. So when you have a hope, when you have a dream, when you have a plan, you have to be able to kind of put that into action. And if you have a lot of hopes and dreams and thoughts and wishes for the future, you might get kind of decision fatigue, or sort of paralysis, where you just don't know which is the right one. You might have several competing different things that you can't really follow all of them at once. So that can, I think, cause you to doubt yourself and to not take the next step again into putting things into action, so that you can really get what you want out of life and kind of achieve those perfect, well, not perfect, nothing's perfect, but achieve those exciting goals and dreams that are there within you, but they have to be turned into something tangible, into something doable. So again, it's kind of a similar theme but slightly different. And the advice here is another Wands card. So it's interesting. Wands are, as I've said, the suit of inspiration, although in the four is a very solid number in the tarot. It's, you know, we can think of 4 pillars of a building or something. You know, it's something that rests on 4 pillars is going to be very secure. So 4 is really, yeah, it's kind of where wands kind of meet external influence, and so they're less in the air. Wands are the suit of the air. But in this case, I think you are being asked to, firstly, to kind of look inside yourself. If you have competing ideas and hopes and dreams, take a minute to close your eyes, become aware of your body on the sofa or the bed or wherever you are. Hear the noises around you. Just take a moment to tune into your body. And then from there, if you have lots of different ideas, just put them either mentally, or you can actually write them down, and just place them around you at the right distance for you, whatever feels right. And then see if you feel like a kind of a clearer space within you. This is all from a technique called focusing by Eugene Gendlin originally. And then explore, how does each choice feel for you? Just take one at a time. Maybe there's one that's leaping out at you, and see what feelings are coming in your body. Are there sensations? Is it in your stomach? Is it in your heart? Is it in your windpipe? It could be anywhere, but just see what comes up, and don't try to analyze it. Try to really just let your body experience rather than think. If words or visions or things pop into your head, that's fine, and then you want to look at them and consider them and see how that feels in your body, and keep on this kind of path of exploration. But if not, just keep staying with the feeling and seeing what comes out of it. And usually something will come out of it, and like that, it can be a vision, it could be another feeling. The feeling might start to move around your body, but keep staying with the feelings until you start to get more tangible things, and explore those things. And then when those things feel right, that's when you like you have a certain vision, and you think, this means something to me, and that's when you know that you're kind of onto something. So I would say that's one method you can use to explore all the different ideas you have. Another method would be to brainstorm, to jot down all the ideas, and then all the ideas around the ideas, make little maps, draw lines, and if that doesn't work for you, you can also try talking to somebody else about your ideas, pitching them to someone, or it could be consulting a friend, or it could be as if you were doing a business pitch, if that worked for you. But really find a way to connect with your different ideas. You could even paint them. It doesn't necessarily have to be an actual representation of what your hopes and dreams are. It can just be like the feeling. And again, don't need to put emphasis on creating something beautiful or anything like that, the painting or drawing. It's just a technique to connect with yourself. And so, maybe one thing feels like a certain colour. And so put them all down, explore and experience them, and kind of just see what feels right. And then when you don't have to be certain. You could also, of course, use the dice method that we talked about. You don't have to decide by that method, but it can definitely help you understand how you feel. And then when you've got the one thing that is standing out more than another, or maybe there's a couple of things, then really go further into them and think about all the ways that you can start to bring this idea or this goal or hope or dream into life. What seeds can you start planting to, what gets you excited as well. Wands are very much about a kind of an excited creativity. So what's the thing out of all of it? Maybe there are some things that you feel that you should do, but when you kind of try to get excited about them, you can't. You just don't feel that enthusiastic. So it's really, finding what really motivates you, and then pushing forward with it and taking it out from the realm of the wands, and starting to perhaps take it into the realm of thoughts and actions, which is swords. And you would have already perhaps explored your emotions. So the cups would be there, and finally then we have the pentacles, where you start to manifest things in the real world, where you start to create things. So that's an overview of your challenges there. Sort of a lack of trusting in yourself at times, and hopefully I've given you some tools with which you can use to overcome that. But I see from all of these cards that you do have a very creative mind, and that seems to be one of your blessings. That's just a kind of a feeling, you know, and every blessing can also be a weakness, so it makes sense that we kind of get this sense. But you really have the capacity to think about things a lot and to explore different avenues, and yeah, sometimes you just need to take things to the next step, you know, get it out of the inspiration realm and into the doing realm. And sometimes, as we've seen, you know, when it comes to things that are more tangible, then advice from people that care about you is a really good thing to have. So in terms of your blessings, the first card that we get here is the Four of Cups. And this is a really exciting and interesting card to see in terms of blessings, because this is the card of the daydreamer. So this again is one of the cards that leads me to see what a creative mind that you have, and where in a sense it can be a challenge for you, as we've seen with the Star and the Five of Wands. It's also something really powerful that you can harness, because you can kind of let your mind run free. And here we have the Hierophant, which is often about the card of the orthodox, doing things in a traditional way. So when we put these two things together, what it suggests to me is that you're the kind of person who can basically break the Hierophant ways of tradition. Maybe you might find yourself in a company where there's a procedure and things have always been done in a certain way, and you just start dreaming to yourself or thinking, well, why is it done this way? Like, isn't there a better solution? And, you know, with giving yourself a bit of time and space to develop your ideas, you find a way that really just revolutionizes the way everything does. Maybe it saves everyone a ton of time. Maybe it's just a super much more interesting way of doing things. Maybe it provides so much more satisfaction to your clients. Whatever it is. And if you are doing this in a work context, I would definitely say make sure that you get credit for your ideas, because I've heard of people who haven't got credit from it. A friend of mine basically reinvented something, and it saved everybody just hours and hours of time, and instead of getting promoted, she got sent to a faraway land which she didn't really want to work in. But this can apply to many more things than just the world of work. If you're thinking about education, for example, if you're doing study, you might come up with a totally new theory that another person hasn't thought of. If you're somebody who's creative, you might come up with a new style of painting or drawing or sculpture, whatever it is that you do. This can really be applied to anything. And if you're someone who likes to tackle the big problems of life, you know, there are so many pressing problems of humanity today. It's perhaps your ability to daydream is going to be one of the things that solves, you know, one of the climate crises that we're the environmental crises that we're facing, or, you know, there is no limit to what your imagination can do. So you can use your imagination to see what your imagination can be used for, if that makes sense. And when I asked for a little bit of advice for you on the best way to make the most of this, we get the Page of Pentacles. So the Page of Pentacles is a learner, a studier. And what I would say that he's doing here in your reading is he's here to tell you to be really curious and to learn as many things as you can, because as I'm trying to think, was it Picasso? I'm terrible. I'm always trying to think of someone in these readings, and I don't know. But learn the rules so that you can break the rules. It sounds maybe a little bit trite, but it really is good advice, because you won't know what you're trying to solve until you've really learned, you know, how things are done. What are the current ways that people are looking at problems? What are the problems, or what are the things? It doesn't have to be problems, but what are the things that you can solve? You need to learn first. So pursue all the different interests that you have as much as possible. Be curious. Look at ways that people have tried to solve things. Look at the things that people have not even considered there's another way of doing. And then, you know, put your mind to it, as this page looks so kind of focused into his pentacle. And just really reinvent things using your daydreaming, creative capacity. And this is something really powerful that you're going to be able to just really amaze people if you apply yourself to it. So it's a really lovely blessing and skill to see there. And for your second blessing, we see the Queen of Pentacles. So there's quite a lot of meanings that we can take from the Queen of Pentacles. She can be someone who's very nurturing and caring. She can be someone who's good at bringing things from the inspirational realm into the material realm. And you may say, well, you've just kind of said that that's not what I have. But people are multifaceted, and sometimes there's two different sides of ourselves that kind of seem in opposition, but they're not. They just work in different ways. So I think that when you actually get to, you know, once you've got past this kind of overwhelm from ideas and you actually start putting things into practice, you have a really good ability to do it with a kind of a sensitivity and a delicateness that is really valuable. So whether it involves nurturing ideas, whether it involves nurturing people or plants, for example, or even yourself, you have a good ability to do that in a very practical kind of way. And yet there's something else that we see, because here we have another powerful feminine figure, the High Priestess, and she could be seen as a kind of the kind of mysterious power that works behind the Queen of Pentacles. So it's kind of like the analogy that people use sometimes about the swan that you see is swimming kind of effortlessly along the water, but the legs underneath are doing the paddling. And perhaps that isn't the best ever analogy, because I don't think it's hard work with the High Priestess, but rather it's kind of this fact that whilst you're there in the material realm tending to the material needs, there's a kind of a sense that you're being guided from your intuition, guided from a kind of a higher sense, that perhaps when you're working on this kind of thing, maybe it's when you're surrounded by nature, or, you know, things to do with the home, things to do with a business, something like that, because that's the Pentacles to do with the home and the business, work, study life as well. There's some side of you that really gets triggered, that it's kind of like you almost don't know where it's coming from. It's like you're connecting to something higher than yourself. You're funneling this kind of intuitive sense. It just comes naturally to you. It's the kind of thing that you might not be able to explain, and people are going to watch you just kind of like the way they're watching the swan gliding so elegantly, and they're going to think, how's he or she doing that, or how are they doing that? But rather than, you know, paddling so hard, it's just something that comes naturally to you. You really are in touch with your sense of intuition, and you are able to bring that into the material world. So that's a really exciting thing to see. Oh, and other things that we might take from this as well, seeing especially the two cards together. If you're into magic work or something like that, this, or if you're not, this can be something to look at. And for you, the suggestion here would be something to do with working with plants, herbalism, for example, or, you know, gardening, or working with flowers or incense, maybe making perfumes, kind of the ability to create magic from things that are in the nature. That's where it seems like your kind of magical strength might be, if you're interested in that, you know. And yeah, you might find that you really do have green fingers and you're just able to get plants to grow that nobody else knows how to. Or similarly, you might want to work with animals, and again, it's like you have this kind of horse whisperer kind of vibe going on. If you know, if you like animals, obviously this all depends on what resonates for you, but these are just different examples of how you might be able to be expressing this Queen of Pentacles with High Priestess energy. And so I drew a card of advice here for you to see how can you make the most out of this talent. And here we get the Ace of Pentacles. So it's interesting, we've seen two aces for you as advice. So I think one of the themes we can say for you in general, whether it's challenges or blessings, is really just getting started on things, you know, taking things into that first step, because once you actually take that first step, you're really going to start achieving a lot. You know, it's possible, you know, because you're quite a dreamy person on the whole, that you can get a little bit lost in the dreams, but as soon as you really start like trying to bring them into something more concrete, then the results are kind of outstanding. Now, something else that we can say from the Ace of Pentacles in terms of, say, how are you going to, you know, how can you offer this gift to the world, is that you can be a great person for giving advice. For this could be for people who are starting a new business, or people who are starting a new job, or who want to know, like, you know, what they should kind of do. You can use your intuitive, nurturing sense to really tap into them and to give them the best advice about how they should proceed. You may be able to see things in themselves, and, you know, again, using your daydreaming sense and your ability to break the rules, you may be able to offer them ways to proceed that they just wouldn't have thought. So starting a new business, starting a field of study, even you know, if you prefer things on a more kind of, say, spiritual or interpersonal level, you might also be looking at ways to make people feel more secure. Other things that are coming up is, say, an interior decorator, like how to make a home feel more homely for people that are starting out on a new home life. And I'm even thinking about style now, fashion, like maybe, you know, you could be the kind of person who, if somebody needs a stylist, that, you know, perhaps they're a prominent figure and they want to kind of project a kind of sense about themselves for their professional life, you can help to kind of get this basis of how to do that with your kind of sensitive abilities and your kind of intuitive sense of tuning into things. So there's some nice ideas for you, and of course you can also think about your own ideas of what makes sense. And finally then, I did just draw one card, which is the Fool card. And the Fool is really about trusting yourself, trusting your intuition, and it is really about taking that leap of faith. Let's see, what's the imagery on the card here? We've got this beautiful lady hovering on the head of a kind of an ethereal monkey, and kind of on the top of a tower of different creatures with flowers and butterflies, and is this like a fox, I think, looking up at her loyal companion in this case, and she's kind of being held by the straps that the birds are kind of holding her by. So I'm getting the thought of, you know, where angels fear to tread, which is maybe not exactly the right saying for this, but I think the meaning that I'm trying to get across is that you can have confidence in yourself, indeed you should, to break out, to make these leaps, you know, to take the daydreams into reality, to trust your intuitive and yet practical ability to, you know, explore new starts for yourself and for other people. And even in terms of the star, you know, to just get going on a project. Don't get stuck forever in the ideation phase of something. Just take the leap when something feels good, you know. Of course, there is a note of caution, as we've seen, because sometimes you get stuck in things and sometimes you, again, are afraid to take the leap. So you don't have to do this alone. You can consult friends and family. But really, I feel that you're quite a blessed person. And so it's really worth taking that step of advice, not of advice, sorry, but that step of going into the unknown. You know, use the wonder we see in the Page of Pentacles. Use the dreaminess of the Four of Cups. Use all that we've seen and just go for it. And I think when you do it and when you have faith in yourself, you're really going to amaze the world with what you can bring to them. And I think with practice, you'll also get better at knowing when to trust yourself, when to get into situations and when to leave situations. So I hope that's been helpful for you. I've really enjoyed reading for you, and if you did like the reading, please do subscribe and comment and like and all the good things. And I would love it if you would let me know if you chose this pile and does it resonate with you. And yeah, that's it. Thanks so much for joining me. Lots of love and light. Welcome to Group 2. You've chosen this wonderful Gothic black shell here. And first of all, we see that your lucky charm card is the Mountain. And so there's two meanings that we could take from this, but I'm going to go with the literal meaning first, which is that mountains, hills, they're a really lucky place for you. And the element of stone and rock is also something that's lucky. Here's my lucky rock, you can see. So to carry that around with you, it's quite simple. Find your own lucky rock, perhaps a little bit smaller than my one, because carrying that around all the time might be a bit of a drag. And yeah, I think really calling on that when you feel you need a bit of luck, or just knowing that it's there, feeling the solidness in the palm of your hand, that's your lucky charm. And perhaps I see a lot of strength in this whole reading, and it's kind of a reminder of your own strength, because sometimes we need a reminder of things. And the slightly less literal meaning is that, because this card is actually about obstacles, so it means that you potentially have that kind of personality where other people would see, oh gosh, this is just a problem. For you see an opportunity, and that's where you really thrive, because a lot of times when people see problems, they just give up, they leave it. And instead you step in, you feel enthusiastic that you can turn this thing into something for your own advantage. So that's how it can work on a more kind of deeper level. And definitely this theme of strength, as I've said, is so present in both your blessings and your challenges. So we'll start with your challenges first. And here we see the King of Pentacles along with the Emperor. Now again, there are two ways of reading this. And the first way of reading it is that if you experience a feeling of lack of strength in your convictions, then this ability to, you've got a lot of power there, but you just can't seem to really take control, to be the boss. You don't have that kind of necessary self-confidence. And if that's the case, certainly carrying your lucky charm around will be very helpful, because it's going to really remind you of that power. And it's interesting that we see mountains and stone in the Emperor here. And, in terms of your advice, we have the Seven of Pentacles. So if it's a case that you haven't really stepped into this power yet, and this may be something that comes later in life for you, this is just an encouragement in that sense to keep on working at it, to keep on learning, to keep on sowing the seeds, whether it's doing more work, doing more study, whether it's just becoming more accomplished at whatever it is you're interested in, practicing more, actually getting out there and doing the things. It's going to give you that confidence. It will come to you, absolutely, because you are a powerful person with a capability of a lot of success. However, for a lot of you, I think what we're seeing here is that it may actually be a bit too much strength. And maybe that sounds weird, but as we will see, strength in general is kind of your strength. Strength is your strength. Power, the ability to achieve things is your strengths and your luck. But as with all strengths and weaknesses, a strength can be a weakness can be a strength. And so if you're someone that feels like they really do have control over the material realm, and they don't let their feelings get the best of them, and they really know how to take control of situations and be the boss, in many ways that's a very good thing. But at the same time, the other connotation, the other side of it, can be stubbornness, rigidity, and unwillingness to see things from other people's point of view, and sometimes to miss out on hidden gems that people have to share with you. It's really great to have confidence in your own ability and to be able to get things done, but if you ignore what others have to say, or you become overly rigid, authoritarian even, you really run the risk of alienating other people, and you might find that your interpersonal relationships suffer, and that you don't actually have as much success in the world as you could do, because there's always going to be another side to things. There's always going to be a perspective that somebody else can offer you, and if people are kind of too scared to do it, then it's you who loses out. And so it could well be that is your weakness, really. And so this kind of stubbornness or fixed-minded, like seeing that there's only one way to do things, by kind of opening your mind a little bit to other things, you can achieve more. And in terms of your advice card here, the Seven of Pentacles, we see that sometimes maybe it's good to just take a rest and consider if what you're building is really what you want, and take other people's opinions into account. You can see here this guy's done well. He's planted his fruits, they've seeds, they've fruited into lovely yummy pentacle fruits, but he looks a little bit despondent. What he worked so hard to achieve, is it necessarily what he wants? So you can get past this by checking in with other people, and also maybe by getting more involved in stuff. And by which I mean, if you're kind of running something, and I have the sense that you're probably the kind of person who's built something from the ground up, so you do know about what it's like to get your hands dirty and stuff. But still, maybe it's a while since you've been in that position, and if you return with a kind of more of a beginner's mind, then you may see things in a new light, you know, be side by side with those who are at the point where you were once as a kind of a beginner. And I think you might get new insights that will actually kind of excite you, that will bring the joy back in, and it will make sure that whatever it is you're building and doing, you're on the right track. And that, you know, whether you've got co-workers or teammates or staff, or perhaps it's family members, even loved ones, one would hope there's some loved ones in your family members, but perhaps a partner or even children, that there's this kind of cooperative thing of a feeling that you're growing things together. And you know, you may feel that you always know what's best for everyone, but nobody does, you know. So by checking in, you can make sure that you don't have to feel sort of like despondent like this guy, and that the, you know, the harvest that you're producing is really going to be the best for everyone, even if you're super sure that it is. And also there could be another connotation of, you know, if you're spending a lot of time kind of managing things, taking care of things, there's a kind of feeling of get out into the nature, and perhaps do some gardening, even like get back in touch with the soil, watching things grow. You know, as a King of Pentacles, there is that connection to that, but you've perhaps become a little bit removed from it. And when we get back in touch with the essential things of what we are, you know, animals in essence, that can also be kind of humbling, and really just help us to remember what our priorities might be. So yeah, I mean, you know, this strength is definitely a good thing, but just checking in every now and then with those around you, with yourself, with the world, and you know, seeing is there any unnecessary rigidity that you can actually let go of, you know, and maybe try things in a new way. So if we then move on to the second challenge, we have the Two of Cups, and this is accompanied by the High Priestess. Now, my feeling is here that the Two of Cups relates to relationship difficulties, and the High Priestess can be relating to perhaps there are wounds in the subconscious that that haven't healed yet, and that maybe makes it difficult for you to trust people, maybe even difficult for you to trust yourself. Maybe it's to do with this rigidity that we've seen. You know, it's interesting that the King of Pentacles there, he was kind of growing out from a tree, and we see how one of these people is kind of like a tree spirit. Well, actually, I suppose both of them are, but they've had to bend, they've had to entangle, they've had to intertwine to become one, rather than this tree here, which just grows straight up and doesn't need anybody else to kind of show him the way. So perhaps this is, you know, it does seem to kind of make sense that there's kind of difficulties in love, and or at least in some relationships, and it could well be that, yeah, there are kind of unconscious things at play that you haven't really worked through yet, or it can be that there's this softer side of yourself that really you haven't let yourself come in touch with, you know, this kind of intuitive side. You know, perhaps you're generally just favouring what you can see, what you can touch, what you really know is there, so that when you start to get this feeling, or when you have a partner that's perhaps a little bit more airy fairy than you, like you might just think, like, what are they on about, you know, or like just not really having the ability to kind of meld to become one. If you haven't had difficulties in your love life, or that doesn't resonate, then it would be some other part of yourself that you have had a trouble, you know, because there's a little fish there, a pair of fish representing yin and yang, and that's kind of the ultimate blending of the masculine and the feminine, which obviously doesn't have to relate to people or gender or anything. It's just about, you know, recognizing, you know, the strength and the vulnerability. And actually we'll see that in this strength card here. This is also about strength, and yet this is a very different kind of strength. You know, here we see a maiden holding open a lion's mouth. So, you know, she's not forcibly doing that to the lion. He's willing to forego his physical strength to let her kind of take care of him with her strength, you know. And at the same time, she's being very brave and vulnerable by approaching a lion, and so's he, because I mean his strength is built on, you know, not having to be vulnerable generally. And yet, you know, maybe this is like the Aesop's fable with the lion that has the thorn in the foot or whatever. Perhaps that's what happened here before. You know, the lion was so strong, he was running around doing whatever he wanted, but then one day this thorn gets stuck in his paw and he just can't get it out no matter what he does. And you know, only by trusting the maiden and the maiden to trust him, they're able to work together, this sense of yin and yang, this like strength and vulnerability becoming one. And so if that sounds like something that resonates with you, then trying to open yourself up to the softer side of life, whatever that might look like for you. It could be about, if necessary, you know, seeing a well-being coach or some kind of performance therapist or something like that, someone who's going to help you explore the past. It could be some kind of rebirthing, if that doesn't sound too kind of weird to you. There are all manner of alternative practices that are a little bit more dreamy. It could be through dancing, for instance. There's a practice called ecstatic dance, which is really just about letting your body move how it wants to and unlocking things. It might be by kind of some kind of performative aspect. You'll have to find a way that kind of speaks to you. I would say, like, just keep your eyes open, and when we get the actual advice for you, here we have the King of Wands. So I would say if it is difficulties in love and that you're having difficulty trusting people or, you know, becoming vulnerable, as we see there, it's really about going for it, using that kingly strength that you have, but in a more exploratory kind of way, you know, whereas the Emperor is all about the earth and the King of Pentacles is also about the earth. I mean, they're both earth sign cards. This is much more about fire and passion and kind of going for it, exploring. You know, we've seen that you're somebody who likes challenges. We'll see this as a challenge. Take this as how you would normally tackle other things, but think, right, you know, if it's to do with dating, I'm going to, I don't know, go speed dating. I'm going to go on a singles holiday, or I'm going to travel the world and, you know, see who I can meet and chat to and be inspired by. It might be that you decide to visit a mystic, seeing as we see the High Priestess, and get some advice from her. But it's really about, yeah, going for it and just kind of, you know, still using that strength, but also putting kind of logic to one side to a degree, and just letting passion take over. You know, perhaps if there's something that you're very interested in, some kind of hobby, some kind of passion, this would be the time to do it. Maybe it's something you've always put off because you've been busy kind of achieving things in the material world. Now's the time to really explore that, and it might be through that you actually meet someone, or it just might be that kind of lets you loosen up a little bit and get more in touch with whatever it is that, you know, the High Priestess is kind of showing us that's been repressed. You know, you can still be very strong, but in a different kind of way, and that is actually going to make you overall more strong as a person. And so moving on now to your strengths. I feel like I'm saying strengths a lot of times in this reading. Here we see the Nine of Pentacles. So this shows that you're, again, a very accomplished person, someone who either will, or, you know, maybe we don't know where you are on your journey, but either you already have worked hard and achieved a lot and you're, you know, able to enjoy a life of. Okay, so I don't know if Mercury's in retrograde or something like that today, but things just keep going wrong. My camera ran out of battery despite being charged all night, so if things look a little bit different, that's why. But let's continue. So this card shows us what an amazing power of self-reliance you have, and what an abundant life you are either living or you will be living in the future, due to this strength, this capacity that we've seen over and over in your reading. And when we mix it with the Eight of Wands, again, we see not only the ability to create things, but the ability to pursue your ideas with focus, with precision, with determination, to really not get knocked off course, to just all your determination, all your energy goes into achieving what you want, and then you're able to actually pull that off really successfully in the world. So this is an amazing strength to have, and this kind of really demonstrates your ability to be able to rely on yourself, and this is a really great strength to have. However, as we have seen in your cards, there is the risk that you can become too rigid with this and too used to doing things by yourself. And so, as we spoke about before, to a certain extent, the advice of the Strength card here is to become even more strong by realizing, yes, you are more than capable of doing things by yourself, but that you can also let other people into your journey. And when you do that, you develop a kind of an inner strength which is very valuable, that will help carry you through difficult times where sheer will and determination and effort just isn't enough, you know, and perhaps help you to build a support network of friends, you know, that will be there for you, and also just this vulnerability within yourself. And one thing to note, by the way, is that just on a separate note, but going back, is that these cards together also really suggest an ability to turn your hobbies into a working business for you, or even, as we will see, to help other people to do that as well. So one of the advantages, you're thinking to yourself, well, why do I need to be vulnerable if I've got all of this? Well, when you're vulnerable, when you're out of your comfort zone, when you don't have everything that you need, it's really amazing to see how many people and opportunities start presenting themselves that normally wouldn't. You know, when you're in your same place, you know where to get your food, you know where you're going to sleep, you know where to get things fixed, what shops to go to, everything's taken care of. So you're kind of got this self-contained energy. Whereas when you go to a new place, say, or you're somewhere where you're totally out of your comfort zone, you're kind of open for people to help you. And I've seen the results of that myself very strongly in my life when I left my home and decided to become a traveller or a nomad. And it was just amazing. You know, I was just trying to get to a rainbow gathering, and normally, maybe at best, I'd find a travelling companion. We'd get the train, which was lovely, but suddenly I found a busload of people going from real near me, and not only were they going there, but they were going to Stonehenge to celebrate the summer solstice, something I'd never done, but always wanted to. So that was like a really exciting detour. While I was there, I bumped into a guy that I'd been friends with 10 years before, and we'd been traveling, and there'd been a little bit of chemistry there from my side anyway, but the circumstances weren't right to explore it. And later on from that connection, we got to kind of explore it, which was a nice thing to happen 10 years later. I mean, we literally bumped into each other. It was quite crazy. And many other things started to happen. I might want to just get to a lift from someone to the train station, and before I knew it, someone was going all the way to my destination, and that person was gaining something. They were getting some company along the trip, and I was also gaining company and getting to know somebody new, learning what they have to show me about the world. So there's just some examples of like when you kind of need things, it's like people or situations come up to fill that space, and within that, beautiful opportunities can happen to you which just wouldn't have happened otherwise. And that's something that if you've traveled, and especially something in a backpacking, whether it's in your own country or abroad, the amazing hospitality that can be offered to you and different things. And something then, therefore, that I see from the Strength card is occurring to me, mentoring. This idea of, using these skills that you have got, this amazing strength and sense of purpose, self-reliance, but sharing that with other people and really trying to learn from them as well. Yes, you're the one with the knowledge, and yet look at it with beginner's eyes. Look at the person that you're dealing with. See what they have to teach you from their beginner's eyes. And I feel like that really speaks to this kind of relationship of reciprocity that we see here. And it can be a lovely way to learn more about yourself and your own vulnerabilities and inner strengths, and to offer that to other people at the same time. So I think that is one way that you can really cultivate your inner strength, as well as just putting yourself out in your comfort zone and doing things that you wouldn't normally do, and just kind of letting go of control a little bit here, because that's what there's a feeling here that you're somebody who control is quite important to them. And while that has served you very well in some respects and will do, there's also a value to letting go of control, as we've discussed. Now, continuing on from that, we see again another card of immense success, which is the World card. And this is really again, it's about being able to achieve whatever it is in the world. For some people, when this card comes up, it can mean fame. But for others, it can mean whatever success really looks like to you, especially in the outside world. So again, it's just all a testament to your strength, your capability, and maybe also having that kind of magic something about you. There's like, after all, I mean, why do some people become famous and others don't? Part of it is definitely talent, and we see that here. But another part, it's maybe a little bit of luck, and it's also maybe a little bit about just some kind of charisma or something that people recognize in you. And I feel like these little sparkles here are kind of expressing that almost unexpressible quality that you have about you. So it's a really exciting card to see, and I feel like whatever success looks like for you in the world, you have the capacity to achieve it if you haven't already, whether that's in business or in fame or in your personal life, or having some kind of dream life that's maybe kind of unusual. Whatever it is, you can really do it. And that is kind of supported by the Ace of Pentacles. Again, this is the card of the material, of bringing new things into the world and really achieving things, really doing things either in the realm of money or home life or security, inner security. So whatever it is, you can really do that. And I feel that maybe, again, we saw this mentorship potential, and as your advice, we see justice. So I really feel like you're being asked to bring this strength and success to other people. One potential job, for example, would be some kind of consultant, or it might be somebody who does an online course, or you have the success, and then you tell other people how did you do it, and you help them to get started on their journey, whatever it is. Or you're an advisor, again, this mentorship, anything that involves with new starts to do with business or home life or work. This is just something that you really excel at. And with the Justice card, there's many things that can potentially mean, but I would say that there's this focus on, bringing it out to the world, helping to, either in the more literal sense of justice, where you help to bring a bit of fairness into the world, bring some of that wealth, that if that's what happens to you, or has already happened, this wealth and abundance, bringing that to other people, or at least the ability for them to copy in your footsteps and do what they've done. Or even, if it's something that appeals to you, there's an element of social justice here. If you would feel interested in that, you're the kind of person, I feel, who people will listen to. So if you speak about an issue, or you become an advocate for other people, you're going to have success there. And that's something that might give you a lot of personal satisfaction. And on a slightly less highbrow note, the Justice card, as I often say, it can be about adjustments as well. So for those people who perhaps they're just struggling a little bit in getting their business off the ground, or, some kind of study endeavor or some kind of project, you can kind of use that strength of yours and kind of analyze what way they're going about it, and just help them to bring themselves into balance, give them good tips about how they can kind of do what you've done. So I hope that's helpful. And finally then, I drew the Four of Swords as your kind of overall advice. And I think whether you've achieved this great amount of success, or whether that's something that you're on a journey to do, there's so much achievement, there's so much action going on. I'm almost tired just reading about it. And this card is asking you to take the time to recharge, to take the time to go inwards. As much as success in the outer world is very important, being the master of your own self, not all about control, but more letting go of control, really. Spending time meditating, or, kind of letting the thoughts and actions just take a rest while you recharge. You go inside and see what lessons there are to be learned inside. There's so much going on for you in the world, but we do see that there's a little bit here where it looks like there's some lessons to be learned about your inner world. And so some kind of practice that brings you back to yourself, that just gives you the time to rest and recuperate. We see these are supposed to be lilies here, and lilies, they go down to the bottom of the lake, and then they emerge afresh when they're ready back at the surface. And so that's what you're asked to do there. And by doing that, it'll just help you to stay in balance, to not get carried away with this endless feelings of strength or rigidity or achievement, as great as that is, but just to take some time to relax, and also to make sure that you don't get burnt out, even if you're helping other people or whatever. You need to take time to help yourself and really relax and just check in with yourself and make sure that the things that you're focusing on are the right path that you still want to be going on with, because it's would be a pity to achieve so much and then later on think, wait, but was this really what I wanted? So taking the time to go inside to regenerate, whether that's meditation in a more classical way, or might be going into a flotation tank, or maybe some kind of sport or hobby, like again, swimming, running, walking, anything where you get to kind of turn your mind off, switch off from the world and from your ambitions or your dreams or your practical achievements, and just spend time just being and relaxing as well. That's something very important for you, I think. So thanks very much for listening to this reading and watching this. I hope you've found it helpful, and I'd love it if you would comment below, and if you pick this pile, let me know, and feel free to share your thoughts about it. And if you like the video, of course, please like, subscribe, and consider hitting the bell icon so that you don't miss any future videos. And if you do want to get in touch with me personally, you can do so via my website, though I will endeavour to read all of the comments that are posted and reply to as many as I can. So thanks a lot. It's been a pleasure to read for you. You've just got a lot of potential, a lot of exciting things ahead for you, I think. And just wishing you the best of luck. Okay, much love and blessings. Welcome, Group 3. You've chosen this lovely heart-shaped piece of coral. And this is a super interesting reading. Out of all the cards that could have been picked from the Lenormand deck, you chose the Clover, which is the most lucky card in the deck. We also had the Dice card, which is lucky too, but Clover is the most lucky card, and so your lucky charm would be to go and find a four-leafed clover. And that might sound impossible, we see that, or difficult, but as a friend of mine once proved to me, there are actually quite a few four-leaf clovers, and I challenged him to find me one, and within a very short time he did, and I kept it in my passport for many years. So perhaps this is my lucky charm, I don't know, but I would like it to be, because this is a really beautiful reading, and that's definitely something that I recommend you keep on you. It'd be very easy to do. And just go looking. When you look, you will find those four-leaf clovers. So what's really interesting is that, as we've seen with some other readings, in a way your challenges really are balanced out by your strengths in many ways. So we'll start with the challenges, and it's interesting because we've got the Judgment card twice here, because I've used two different tarot decks, and so that's clearly an important theme. So let's talk about it. Judgment is a card, it's a major arcana card, so that shows us it's really important in terms of life lessons, and it's really about those points in your life where you have the kind of realizations that change the entire course of your life, because maybe it's that kind of thing where you think, no, this is my life's destiny or purpose, or this is something I have to do, or this is a way of being that I don't want to be anymore, or things that are just super important that they really will affect the course of your life. So they're very important things to have, and as we see it in your challenges section, I feel that you have a bit of a tendency, especially as we get it with the Knight of Wands card, to just kind of, you've got a lot of enthusiasm, and I can see why, because we'll see that from your Blessings card, but there is a little bit of a tendency to kind of act first and kind of think later. And there is a value in that, as we will see, because we have the Phoenix as your strength card. So this shows me that you're kind of the person who has the ability to kind of keep reinventing yourself, to live many lives. And so, overthinking it might, in a sense, prevent you from doing it, having this kind of creative fluidity. But at the same time, if you always rush into things and you don't give things, or you're often rushing into things and you don't give them enough thought. Look how we see he's got a bit of a raggedy cloak here. He's been in a few fights maybe, and he's lived to tell the tale and survive another day, that's for sure. Just like the fiery phoenix, this is a fiery sign, airy in terms of the elements. And so your advice here is just sometimes to slow down. I mean, this looks like a bit of a depressing card because it's often about worrying and not needing to worry, and certainly there is nothing to be gained by worrying unnecessarily, but there is something to be gained by sometimes taking a time to consider what effect is your actions going to have on yourself, on other people. What's going to be the next outcome. Are you going to are you going to have regrets? Okay, it's not a good mindset to always be thinking about your regrets, but if you find that in life you're often doing things that you think, I wish I'd really thought about that a little bit more beforehand, then this is just a reminder from the tarot to just spend a little bit of time contemplating things. Maybe before you go to bed you can just run through the different events, or maybe you want to do it in the morning, I don't know, perhaps it's not super restful at night, but whenever you can think best, it doesn't really matter. And just consider where the path that you're going on is taking you. It's fine to have fun, to explore. In fact, I think it's, as I said, one of your strengths, and we're going to look at that. But a little bit of thought can save an unfortunate situation and stop you from kind of waking up one day and just realizing that you haven't kind of maybe taken advantage of some of the things that you really would have liked to. Don't kind of let precious opportunities slip away because you're so busy kind of chasing the next fun thing to do. By all means, I applaud your vigor for life, but yeah, a little bit of thought can just make sure that you are still hitting those key points that are important for your development as a person, your development in life. And here for your next set of challenges, which is all related, we have the Seven of Cups. And this can really be, again, about life choices and what's fulfilling and what do you really want to pursue in your life. And again, we see this figure, he's looking at a map, but this lady here, she's kind of got the moon in her head, if you can see that, and she's kind of pointing to the next big thing, to the next kind of castle in the sky. And maybe she doesn't realize that there are various different things to be looked at more close to home. There's a lot of castles in the sky here, isn't there? And so when we see the Seven of Cups, sometimes it can be a kind of an evaluation of what really gives your life meaning. What do you really want to pursue? Is it fame? Is it knowledge? Is it spirituality? Is it the love of your life? Is it traveling? Is it, I don't know, it could be many things, and it doesn't have to be just one thing, but there's a sense of, again, have you really stopped to ask yourself the question? And the Judgment card here is just reinforcement of that. Is it possible that you've missed out on thinking about what really fulfills you? What's going to give you that long-term fulfillment, as well as just living in the moment, which is a very important thing to do, as I've said, but it's also important to sort of kind of check that you're aligned with your highest self, you know, and not in everything you do. Again, we have to have fun, we have to go with the flow, but if you just kind of endlessly go with the flow, you might just end up feeling kind of lost, you know, and then maybe your friend who had the map has gone off and you're just floating in the sky somewhere. But don't worry, you know, if this is you, because as I said, in a way it's part of your strengths, and really what you're being asked to do is not to repress your emotions and neither to ignore them, but just to kind of acknowledge them, and your emotions, the things that really feed your well-being. The king is a very balanced character here, and we see how, you know, the storm is all around him in a sense. The waves are quite turbulent, but he's sitting there, you know, calm, relaxed, in control, happy. He's got his little fish amulet on his neck there, which is kind of the symbol that he has really considered these things. So both from a kind of mental aspect and from a more of a soul or well-being aspect, just being asked to really look at those things from time to time and just check that you are kind of going in the right direction. Feel free to take deviations. It's, I think, part of who you are, and you seem to be a very lucky person, so, you know, you can kind of get away with it. But still, you know, a kind of a sense of fulfillment at the end of the day is what everybody really needs. There was a psychologist who was a Holocaust survivor, and he found that one of the needs that we have in life, you know, more even than food and water, is a kind of sense of purpose, a sense of meaning, and a sense of fulfillment. And those were the people who were really able to get through, in general, some very difficult times, you know, because they, you know, all experienced a lack of food and things like that, but it was the people that kind of managed to keep some kind of an important focus on what their soul really needed, that were able to get through the really dark times. So that might seem like a bit of a dark example, but in a way it is, but we're all going to face a difficult time at some point or another, and so it's good to know like what it is that really keeps people going through those kind of times, a sense of alignment with purpose. But again, you can always figure that out when the time comes as well, but you can spend a little bit of time considering it as you go through life. Now, having said all that, as I mentioned, here we have the Death card, and again, that may sound scary, but I love the imagery of this deck because we have this phoenix who's being reborn. And this, to me, is what the Death card is all about. It's about cycles and endings, but also rebirth. And in a sense, when the phoenix is reborn, the phoenix comes back stronger every time, even more vibrant, shining in this blaze of glorious fire. So, you know, this is definitely one of your strengths. And I feel like you're the kind of person who is likely to explore many different ways of living. You know, in a sense, you're here to experience as much as you can and to kind of gain knowledge and experience through being, through doing, you know, and eventually, you know, just picking up insights along the way that will make sure that, you know, this judgment realization part of your challenges and blessings will be spoken to. And we see that here again in the Knight of Pentacles. He's really quite a pragmatic figure, and he is gathering knowledge for a journey, and he is sowing seeds, and he can be a bit of a slow starter. We see that his horse is not moving, unlike the other knights of the Rider-Waite deck, but that's okay because he's just gathering all his power kind of into this pentacle. I can see it now as a kind of like an orb of power that he's just kind of channeling everything into that, and there is a kind of a logic to it. And so sometimes if you know, and this is sort of going contrary to what I said here, but if you're kind of feeling that, you know, well, what is the logic of my life, because I've tried so many different things, I think as long as you're stopping to just kind of take stock every now and then and think, well, what did I learn from that? What about myself? What did I get out of that? What did I learn about other people? What did I enjoy about that, and what didn't I enjoy about it? Then you're really on the right track. And I think that's something that it just comes quite naturally to you anyway. And so the advice here is really to just keep on going as you're going, as far as I can see, that by this continual process of cycles of death and rebirth, that you are really potentially setting yourself up for the ability to support yourself and to make success in the world, to be financially abundant, to have the kind of security that you need, to have a life of well-being, of prosperity, of enjoyment. And if there's advice to be had here, which there should be since this is in the advice position, then perhaps there's just an element of, as I say, a little bit of self-control. Like we see the falcon here, and the falcon, whilst a bird of prey, is kind of in respect to the lady here. Like we see that she has the falcon as gloves. So the falcon, the wilder, represents the kind of instinctive side here, the instinctual, because here we've got a kind of a garden. It's very well cultivated, it's neat, and look at her lavish robes, but there is the raw instinct in this card, and that's the falcon. And yet at the same time, that has been tamed to a certain degree, so the lady is able to use her own instinct and animal passion to really get what she needs, to make sure that she does end up achieving this comfortable, abundant space for herself. And not sort of to just continually be reborn without anything, but to derive things from that along the way. So it kind of just all ties back to, this is a reading that really makes sense as a whole. It just ties back to what we've seen there. And in fact, it's interesting when I look at the advice cards in general, we have a one from every suit. So swords, the element of thoughts of the mind; cups, the element of love, well-being, creativity; pentacles, the element of achieving things in the material realm or self-security; and wands, the card of or the suit of inspiration, and can actually be the transcendent, the closest thing to spirit or something above us. My friend and I, we were having this discussion, and I was saying, well, to me, wands come first because they're the spark of the idea, and then maybe could go either way. Maybe it's a bit of thinking and a bit of feeling, is somewhere in the middle. And then pentacles are the final manifestation of the journey. But as he was pointing out, it can go the other way, from pentacles up to the kind of higher self of the wands. So it's really interesting that you're being asked to look for advice in every realm of these kind of four key elements that make up the world, as it were, make up our experiences in the world. And again, when we see your blessings card, the Six of Wands, is just another wonderful card to see. This shows your ability to overcome adverse events, adversity, and to experience success in the things that you do, And it's really interesting that we get the 5 here, because there is a progression in the tarot from 5s to sixes in general. Fives speak of troubled times, and sixes are where we see some kind of resolution. And again, this is kind of saying when you get into a sort of a situation that it looks like there might be trouble, you know, whether that's because people are disagreeing and you're able to be a mediator, or because the situation is just kind of turning in a way that doesn't look good, somehow you have this ability to just come out on top and find the successful way through that. So it's really lovely cards to see, and I expect that it really does speak to the fact that you've drawn, or you know, you were drawn to the most lucky card in the entire Lenormand deck. And so again, another card that really seems to be saying to me, more or less in terms of your blessings, just kind of keep going as you are. Just don't have doubt in your ability to triumph over adverse experiences. When you need to, just focus all your intention and your energy into the place that you need to get it. And that might look like rebirth, for instance. Sometimes, you know, sometimes it might just be in the situation that it needs to be slightly adjusted. Sometimes it's time for a complete change, and just really being focused, to the point, direct, taking action. And it's really about the will, putting the will into it, and just never forgetting that that's who you are, and that's the kind of your magic powers in a way. So this has just been such a lovely reading, and yeah, all I can really say is just don't forget to take the time to assess things, to learn things from the journey, to kind of take notes, so that, you know, you're really on this fantastic journey. But yeah, the only thing really is just to remember it, remember who you are, and, you know, just consider from time to time what speaks to your highest good. You know, don't always need to be just transforming for transforming's sake, as fun as that might be, and as much as you actually do have to learn from that. But just make sure that you are learning from it, and that you can really put it to your advantage and achieve something in the material world, so that your needs are taken care of. And finally, as a last and overall card of advice, we drew the Page of Wands. And I think that what this card is really saying is that a lot of your strength, and again, a strength is a weakness and a weakness is a strength, but it comes from this kind of ability to have wonder in your life. The Page of Wands is someone who is curious. They see all the potentials. They don't necessarily know which way they're going to go, but they're excited by the journeys that they can take, by the possibilities that lie ahead of them. Sometimes pages can speak to a little bit of immaturity, so that's where, you know, when I say that the weakness is the strength and stuff. So, you know, you are being asked to keep on, you know, trying to derive lessons from your experience, but at the same time you're also being asked to keep this beginner's mind, in a sense, this ability to find wonder, whether it's at the nature, whether it's at the journey you're on, whether it's at the people that you meet, whether it's at a new topic that you're learning about or that you've heard about, or a place that you want to visit. Whatever it is in your life, or a new phase that you're entering in, try to always keep that sense of wonder about you, whilst learning things from the process, definitely, but keeping that as your friend. I think that that's going to be the key to really being able to hold on to this wonderful phoenix energy and the victory of the Six of Wands. So this has been a wonderful reading to do, and I hope that you found it helpful and inspiring. And I would love it if you would comment and let me know if you picked this pile and did it resonate with you. And if you like the reading, as ever, please consider subscribing and liking and hitting the bell icon so that you don't miss a video from me. And I will do my best I will certainly read every comment that is posted, and I'll do my best to reply where I can. And if you want to get in touch with me personally, you can do so on my website. So sending you much love and blessings and all the good things, even if you don't really need it. Blessed clover as you are. And don't forget to go and get yourself that lucky 4-leafed clover while you're about it. Okay, take care. Welcome, Group 4. You have chosen the Woman card. So this card I've drawn for everyone is to represent what their lucky charm is. So there's various ideas that I'm getting from this card. In general, your luck is connected to the feminine in some way. Now that might be in the form of a woman, perhaps a feminine person in your life who's been a big influence, and so you might wish to carry a photo of them around, perhaps in your wallet or in a locket or something like that. And another idea is that maybe, again, whichever gender you identify with, it's not really about that, but that you carry something on your person that represents the feminine. And things that come to mind might be a dried flower, for example, or perhaps a bit of essential oil, something perhaps like jasmine or patchouli, something like that. Or even you might consider getting a tattoo, for example, perhaps of the planetary symbol for the word for Venus, which I've gotten to show you here. This sign here is used in astrology to represent Venus, and Venus represents the goddess Aphrodite, and so it's the feminine aspect of things. So anything like that, even this shell, I think is I didn't pick it on purpose thinking about that kind of thing. It just happened intuitively, but with its beautiful kind of soft pink and white, it has to me a feminine kind of energy about it. So something like that could also be another thing if you want a talisman to carry around with you to represent that kind of good luck. And I think when this might also represent yourself, as I say, or it might represent another person in your life, and whether it's you or that person is somebody that you can turn to when you need to sway your luck in your favor, whether it's going deeper into yourself or consulting a loved one in your family or a good friend, someone that you can really trust. So when we come to when I look at the whole of the reading, I feel like possibly you're a person who's not 100% at home in this world. You're one of those slightly celestial beings who can bring so much warmth and joy into the world, but can struggle a little bit with the day-to-day living and getting things done. And we see that there's quite a lot of pentacles here in the challenges side. In fact, we've actually got the Two of Pentacles here as your challenge, and then again the Two of Pentacles as advice on some of your challenges, which I'll explain more about. And even in your blessing side, we see a lot of pentacles. So there's definitely a lot of learning to be done around the kind of the material realm, and I'll go into that now in a bit more detail. So let's have a look first of all at the Two of Pentacles from both the different suits. And something I really like about the Shadowscapes deck is the sense of motion, because sometimes, there's also a lot of motion in the Rider-Waite deck, from the wavy water to, we can think that he's a juggler, but there's a very explicit path of movement here. And so what this card is really trying to say is that sometimes you might feel challenges between balancing two different material realms in your life. So that can look like many things. It might be between your work and your home life. It might be even if you have different projects going on, or any two things that really are about things in the real world. It's also possible that it can be about your sense of security. You may find that you kind of oscillate between feeling quite a lot secure and not that secure. I would say that's normal really for most people to feel like that though. But if it seems like a particular issue for you, then it's something that you can work on. Something that I think is always worth pointing out is that life is a juggling act, and sometimes we just have to wear a funny hat and do a little dance and accept the kind of the ups and downs. But at the same time, there are ways to minimize it. I know that for myself, I've always found that even when I was in school, it was quite difficult for me, at least at a certain point of study, to have too many subjects going on at once. You know, I was happier in university when I could just really focus on one thing. And of course, within that, there will be many sub-disciplines, but they're all kind of related. I find that when my focus is too split, it's quite difficult. So if you have the opportunity, trying to narrow down the things that you're doing so that they interrelate, that can be one way of managing the challenging energy of the Two of Pentacles. And in terms of what the cards have to tell us, we see the Hierophant here, who is often about the orthodox way of doing things. So whilst it might seem kind of boring, you know, especially if you are the kind of person who exists slightly in another realm, there's a lot to be said for, well, I feel like this is more, you rebel against the orthodox, and in a sense that's what makes you have the kind of strengths that we will see here. But at the same time, sometimes there's rebellion which is needed, and sometimes there's rebellion more for the sake of it. And I think it's up to you to sort of juggle and find out where the balance of that lies for you, and what ways can you actually draw stability from the traditional ways of doing things. You don't have to do everything traditionally by any means, but there are reasons why people have certain traditions, and you can look into the wisdom of that and see, well, what can I take from myself, even if I don't necessarily want to. Like, maybe there are some things that are beneficial, and that's somewhat reflected, I would say, in the Ten of Pentacles here, because the Ten of Pentacles is such a grounded card. So definitely a lot of grounding meditations that can be very useful for you, and just taking the time to meditate. This represents the tree of life from the Kabbalah, and so you can do a lot of tree meditations. There's one that I use that I've recommended before, which you can find on Spotify, Philip Permutt, never worked that out, where you really just feel yourself rooting down into the ground like a tree, drawing all this energy from Mother Earth. And this can really help you with lots of things, like growing a sense of security, and also if you ever have that kind of like airy feeling, you know, like this juggler, although the pentacles again are the suit of earth, you know, there is a kind of precariousness. I mean, he's standing on one leg there, you know, and so this can help you to kind of combat that feeling of just being all up in the air. And I think other things we can draw from this, and really looking at the Hierophant as well, is perhaps trying to set a routine. Again, this might be something that's quite difficult for you because of this kind of head in the clouds feeling that I'm kind of getting, in a sense, at least for some of you. But even just the smallest of things, like if you find you can kind of build it up one thing by one thing, you know, even if it's just as simple as going outside into your garden or something like that, just taking a 5-minute walk at the start of your day, just as an example, or, you know, saying hi to your pet, or having a 5-minute yoga routine. There's a lot of good yoga meditations on YouTube these days. Don't actually do yoga, but I have been recommended one by various friends, Yoga with Adrienne. So I'm being told that's very good, and there seems to be lots that people are benefiting from. Of course, do be careful and never do something with your body that hurts without at least having a proper trainer. But building up this sense of routine, this kind of stability, getting something that you can rely on, and routine, at least to a certain degree, is something that is very anchoring, it's very grounding. So that's kind of what we can see, the Hierophant representing the traditional, and also really this card representing the traditional, also about building up a sense of security in your home life. So making sure that the details to have a comfortable home are taken care of, and that can be in a practical way. You know, if you do struggle with getting a lot of things done, then maybe you set up things in advance, whether it's like online ordering of groceries to come, or you know, buying 2 things at once instead of one, and then when one runs out, you've got the other one there, so you don't find, oh gosh, I haven't got any toilet paper, and that's just, yeah, you know, it's a small thing, but like when you've got a lot on your plate, these kind of things can kind of unsettle you, especially if you're really trying to do something else. You know, you're busy juggling your work or your other commitments, things like that. See if you can come up with little life hacks to just make sure that the more boring aspects perhaps of life are taken care of. There's so many convenience things available in our world today, so try and see if you can avail of them. And you might find it useful in setting a habit to use a kind of one of those apps that help you keep track of your tasks. For quite a while I used a mood tracker called Dailyo, and there are plenty, and that could also be relevant here, because the 2 of Pentacles, especially seeing it twice, it can actually show that there can be an imbalance of emotions as well, you know, as it's showing up in your challenges. And so by using a mood tracker that also you can use it to track different things that you do, you can see what effects doing various things in your life have on you, you know, whether that's to do with the food you eat, or the habits that you keep, the routines that you set, the times you go to bed. You can choose how to customize the app, and then you're able to kind of see, it presents in very nice ways all the different kind of fluctuations of mood and things like that, and you can see what you achieved and when. So that could be another kind of practical tool that you can use to help get into a pattern. There are apps, particularly if you're looking to form new habits. I used to use Habitica for quite a while. It was kind of like a game that you level up with. I didn't really find it that much of a game. My friend told me that you're supposed to do it with other friends, and then you battle your characters together. They level up as you complete your task. But for some people that can feel a little bit too restrictive. But they're just all things that you can explore yourself and see what works for you. And again, speaking about, you know, perhaps sometimes feeling a lot of emotions, kind of ups and downs, we see that again with the Ten of Swords, because this is really a card of feeling sometimes down, you know, sometimes kind of depressed, as if things are a little bit tenuous. We see in this card, let me see if I can bring it closer, there's these kind of birds attached to cords, and they're flying through the girl's cape. They're like bursting holes through it, and you know, you see that her feet are kind of held by this gossamer kind of structure, and yet is she falling, is she flying? And again, this is what gives me this sense of that perhaps you don't feel 100% at home in this world, and sometimes it's just a little bit tricky for you to stay grounded and to feel kind of whole and safe. And we see that here emphasized again, and the thought of home life as well with the Queen of Pentacles. So again, there's this sense of maybe a little bit of difficulty about your sense of security and an ability to kind of build that up. And again, we see a focus on home life, but this one perhaps it's there's also a lot about nurturing. So it's taking the time to nurture yourself, to make sure that your needs are being met, both from perhaps a kind of a spiritual well-being level, so that you are taking time to meditate or take a walk in nature, have a bath, have a little spa for yourself. You know, if you can go on little retreats in nature, that's really great, or a spa day. And if that's not possible, you know, just bringing some essential oils into the shower with you, you know, or a herbal mix and inhaling the steam, just doing little nourishing things for yourself. And this can be some of the things that you create a routine around. You know, routines don't have to be sort of boring or prescriptive. They can be whatever you want them to be. It's more about a sense of regularity, keeping them up, so that then you know that the things that you can come back to that make you feel grounded. And other things that we can see with the Queen of Pentacles, it might be referring to, you know, feeling more grounded by doing gardening or bringing nice things into your home. So making sure that you have a comfortable bed and a, you know, a nice night dress or pajamas or whatever, because sleep, of course, is a very important thing, especially when regulating mood and helping to achieve some kind of regularity in your life, and also making you feel comforted and having sweet dreams. So they're really some of the tips. You know, soft fabrics. You don't have to spend a lot of money to make these things come true. You know, you might pick a few herbs from the garden and scatter them around. You might light a candle every day and just think, what are your intentions, or what are your blessings for the day, or, you know, what are you going to do to make yourself feel kind of grounded? You know, are you able to take a barefoot walk somewhere safely? Perhaps that's a very grounding and nourishing thing to do. So those are some things you can consider. Also, we saw this, your lucky charm being somebody or something, this feminine energy connection. So perhaps there's a person in your life that either maybe you didn't get enough of that nurturing vibe growing up, and so you can learn to become that person for yourself. Or maybe you did get it, but you still need to provide more for yourself. You know, maybe it's just something you need to take a bit more time on. And again, it's just quite funny to see this coming up as the challenge and the advice for the challenges. So the solution and the problem are kind of one and the same in a way, that, you know, in order to achieve balance, you have to seek balance. And that there is a level of acceptance that, you know, no matter what your life looks like and how many routines you implement or whatever, there will be a topsy-turvy nature to life, and just kind of accepting it. And like I said, putting on the funny hat, doing a dance, and just thinking, well, here we go again, gonna spin these pentacles and go juggling another time. is kind of part of it, just accepting what is, but at the same time, still striving to create routine, perhaps rituals, perhaps. Yeah, and that's another thing. I mean, these are more the context cards, and these are more advice, but for some people, something that can be very comforting if you're looking for routine and ritual can be becoming part of a group, perhaps a spiritual kind of group. Again, it has to be something that speaks to what you want. Don't just, I don't know, join the Scientologists or something. But, if there's something that speaks to you and may not have anything to do with spirituality, it's just the Hierophant can sometimes be about that. But it could be some kind of a group that goes out and makes sure that old people are doing fine in their homes, or that the local park is being tended to. I lived near a ancient woodland, and I remember thinking how beautiful the wildness of the nature was, and yet realizing how manicured it was at the same time. How there was these ancient gravestones in some of it, and many different parts. And I did learn that there was an organization who would take care of it at once, trying to preserve its beautiful wild look. I mean, imagine a kind of ancient woodland in the middle of London, and yet at the same time taking care of it, tending to it. So that's kind of my feeling there, is something that you could do, helping people or nature to stay kind of in a good way, in a kind of an orderly way, but without necessarily having to be overly prescriptive about it. And moving on now to the blessings that you have in life. Here we see the Lovers. So there are two main interpretations to take from this. One interpretation, the most kind of obvious one, would be that you have the ability to form very deep bonds, maybe just one bond, kind of a soulmate style bond, although I don't necessarily think that there's only one soulmate for people in their life. I feel that's a limiting belief. Can you imagine if that's true, like how hard it would be for people in this world of billions of people to find that person? But nevertheless, that you have the ability to connect very deeply, to make a really harmonious union with another person, and that's something that will bring a lot of joy and satisfaction and fulfillment within your life. And however, there is another side to this, and the Lovers is about choices, and so it can be about making a choice that brings a lot of harmony and unity and a sense of well-being. There can be a kind of a sense of growing a community as well, like bringing this wonderful energy to more than one person. And when we see a page here, there's always a lovely kind of youthful like spirit, and this really just speaks to the ability to kind of focus on and manifest this Lover's energy in the world, and to bring it to other people who maybe they don't necessarily have it. So that's what I'm kind of seeing there. And this message is echoed again when we see the Three of Cups. Three of Cups is very much about socializing, it's about friendship, it can be about singing, dancing, celebrating. So again, we see rituals. So this card being more in the way of advice, this is really encouraging you to bring this Lover's energy to other people, to share it with others, because the more that you share it with, not necessarily romantically, although you may be a polyamorous person, in which case 3 people here can make sense. But again, Lovers is not all about love. It's just about the ability to make really good choices in certain ways that really fulfill the soul. And so you might find that you want to help other people make those choices as well. Or, as I've said, with the community, you might find that you want to build a community, and using the kind of knowledge and this slightly idealistic, I'd say it's quite idealistic really, even though it's realistic because it is your reality. But the Page of Pentacles, you know, he's kind of looking almost in awe at his pentacle, and there is a sense of idealism there, like high ideals, and a kind of a beauty and a glory to it. And so this is really a gift that, you know, it's worth sharing with other people. And I think that not only do other people stand to benefit from it, but that you also stand to benefit by really sharing this soul gift with other people. And we see a similar message, very similar really, albeit in another fashion, by your other blessing here, which is the Three of Swords. So the Three of Swords, that's an interesting counterpoint really to the Three of Cups here. And again, there's this 3-3-2-2. There's a lot of symmetry going on in this reading somehow. And I think that what this is here to say is that you really have the ability to heal people, heal from a broken heart, to heal yourself, and to learn from that healing process how to bring healing to others. You know, we see this poor wounded swan, but the heart here shows that healing is absolutely possible. There has been hurt, but there can be wholeness again. We see this circle there. And so again, this is a really beautiful gift, and it's these kind of things that make me see that you're quite likely to be this kind of slightly otherworldly being. On the one hand, blessed with these amazing powers, but on the other hand, finding it difficult sometimes to deal with the day-to-day, you know, and the ups and downs of being someone who's empathetic and, you know, can experience a lot of emotions. And again, in terms of the context of your blessing, we see, you know, with healing, we also see balance, that you're able to bring balance where there is imbalance. And that's often what is really needed when healing yourself or when healing other people emotionally and perhaps also physically as well. That's something that can be indicated here. It's about balance, and it's also about being able to see things from more than one side. You know, we can see things from the people who are begging here, and we can see things from the perspective of the person who's giving, and we could be any of the people on this card. And so when we take this into account with your advice, the Queen of Wands, which it's another really outgoing card that matches the Three of Wands, the Three of Cups energy here. You know, it's about other people, and the Queen of Wands especially, she's really asking you to bring this ability to shine sun even in the darkness out to other people, both for your own sake and for their sake. You know, when you're the wounded swan and you need to find the balance, that being with other people can often be the really good way to help you rediscover yourself. And sometimes when you're hurting and then you see that somebody else is hurting, to be able to help them and put your troubles aside for a moment, and then get the feeling of kind of happiness that we get when we help other people, it can really help to heal your own sense of woundedness as well, if that's what you're going through at the time. So in terms of professions then, we see that you can be good at helping people make choices, look into the future, good at organizing communities, good at sharing your knowledge with other people. So it might be that, you know, this line particularly suggests perhaps that you could be a good counselor, perhaps a relationship therapist, for example, Or even, I mean, we can take it out of the realm of relationship and we can think about social justice. You know, there's a feeling of healing the hurts and bringing back balance. You know, we see the scales as well, and somebody who's doing a charitable work, and kind of bringing some joy to people. And again, we kind of also saw this with your challenges as something that, you know, might also help you. So again, there's some symmetry, even if it's in very different ways. And again, this kind of sociable way of doing it. So, and again, helping people make choices. Maybe you advise them on things. It could be career. You might become some kind of spiritual advisor. It could be maybe even some kind of health advisor. It could be for families that are going through difficult times, or, you know, people who have experienced difficult diagnoses. Maybe that's not right for you. It does depend. It might be difficult for you to do something that's too emotional, because we see that, you know, emotions can be a challenge for you. But something where you can kind of bring your intuitive knowledge of what is for the best for people, of what is the way for them to heal and to move forward. So you can think more for yourself about what that might mean. And finally, then we get the Devil card. This is a card that can speak about addictions or feeling trapped. And having seen some of the emotional, difficult feelings that you may experience, there might be a sense that when the world gets a bit overwhelming, that you kind of retreat into yourself. You can see we have this figure in here kind of crouched up in the fetal position, and you know, the heart's been left kind of far away. So there might be a tendency when things get too much to indulge in addictive and perhaps destructive behaviors. And so it would really be a caution against that, to do your best not to, because of course once you get too deep in the hole, you know, getting out can be kind of difficult, and it's not going to make this sense of juggling everything any easier. You know, it might feel easier to retreat, but in the end, facing your problems and trying to build constructive habits, and, you know, then sharing the gifts with the world, that's something that can really help you to stay on track and to keep you away from this more sort of self-destructive side. And also when we see the devil, another thing it can talk about is to remember not to get trapped into toxic relationships as well. So again, it's still kind of an addictive behavior. And I think that, you know, as we've seen, you're kind of someone who's probably got a lot of compassion, and so you may sometimes give people the benefit of the doubt for too long and find yourself in your pity and in your wish to kind of help someone that you're actually kind of not helping yourself. So you really have to remember that if you want to stay balanced, and if you want to be grounded, and if you want to present your unique gifts for yourself and to the world, it's really important that you take care of those things first, and you know, try to be a little bit discerning in your relationships, whether it's friendships or romantic relationships, and just check in with yourself, perhaps check in with the people that love you, you know, if this is somebody that you can turn to, and the Queen of Pentacles, perhaps getting their advice, and, you know, looking out for the red flags, things like that. Just trying to stay juggling, to stay giving the love and advice and the support, and to stay grounded. That's really kind of the message of the devil here. So this has been a really lovely reading to do, and certainly a lot of wonderful depth to your skills here and your blessings in life. And even if things may feel a bit tricky, there's definitely ways that you can overcome that, and So I really hope that you've found this reading helpful. It's been my pleasure to read for you. And if you did like it, if you resonated with it, please give me a like, subscribe, hit the bell icon so that you don't miss any of the videos. And I'd love it if you would comment down below and tell me that you picked this pile and how you did or even didn't resonate with it, and any thoughts that you might have, any advice perhaps for other people who are like you, who also picked this pile. That's something we can all do, is share, and you're particularly good at that, so share your wisdom if you feel like it. And I will do my best to reply to the comments below, and I will certainly read them all. And if you do want to contact me personally, you can always do so by my website. So thanks very much, and much love and blessings to you. And I have the urge now to do a secret reading. It's not, I'm going to have to say secret like that because I'm going to leave a timestamp to it. But yeah, for the people who feel drawn to stay on, this is going to be a message, just a quick one, for anybody who just feels drawn to hear it. Okay, so if you're joining me here, you're joining me for my so-called secret not so secret message. Just I felt intuitively compelled to do this after reading for the last group. This has been actually, this reading in itself has been quite a challenge to do. I've had tech problems, internet problems, battery problems, a lot of things, a lot of challenges to get through in this reading. So I really hope that it was helpful for people. And yeah, I'm just called now to just bring a little bit of advice in and see just one little message for everybody who's still watching. What have the Nature Oracle cards got to share with us? Okay, Cave Sanctuary. So this may have been quite an intense reading for some of you, because we've been looking quite deep into your psyche, and the very nature of looking into challenges is something that can bring up feelings that are quite emotive. And how do we deal with challenges? Well, I've done my best to give you various suggestions throughout the readings, but the Cave Sanctuary card seems really appropriate to come in here, because it's about really building a sanctuary for yourself, and that can be somewhere that you can go. That could be somewhere tangible, like an actual cave, or you know, a man cave or a woman cave that you build for yourself. Or it may even just be a corner in a room, somewhere where you have like a little altar and maybe a cushion, and you can sit and meditate. And it can also be a kind of an attitude that you cultivate within yourself. So I drew this card for myself a while ago when taking some psychedelics for kind of introspective purposes, to learn for self-expansion, let's say, introspective and extrospective. And I got this card, and so I was really called to build a kind of cave within myself. And in this case, because I'm studying to be a psychedelic guide and perhaps going on a counseling path as well, I really wanted to be sure that I'm able to hold the space, and if things come up for people, that I'm able to be a sanctuary both for myself and for other people. So I was really envisioning myself as a kind of a temple or a cave. And yeah, I wasn't really able to move for several hours. Not to say that I couldn't move, I still had the capacity to move if I wanted to, but I felt very still, very heavy, like a kind of rock. So that's just something that you can approach from whichever way makes sense to you. But definitely this sense of building a kind of a cave, building a sanctuary, whether it's in the mind or whether it's in the body or whether it's in reality. And it's something where you can go even when you're feeling troubled by the challenges that are prepared for you. And I've just picked up the book here because I really do love the words that the author of this deck has to say. So I'm going to read from him now, Stephen Farmer. And he says, "There is a quiet, still place inside of you that will always be available as a sanctuary. Yet finding such a space in the natural world will enhance and complement this internal place of peace. Whether it is a cave, meadow, forest, seashore, or any other setting in nature, this is where you can see, hear, and feel the presence of the Creator in your surroundings. Let it become a temple for your heart and your soul. Rather than having your computer, television, or any other human-made device or activity be your sanctuary, allow yourself to discover the perfect place in nature where you can simply be and breathe." I always love to take a deep breath, as you will find out if you keep watching these videos with me, and I invite you to join me every time you see me doing so. And he continues to say, "Doing so bridges the connection between the internal and the external, facilitating a spiritual communion that allows your being to be aligned in dramatic and quiet reverie with all that is. In today's busy world, it becomes even more critical to set aside time for sanctuary, even if you have to schedule it." So hopefully those words bring some helpful advice to you, and thanks very much for joining for this extra little piece of advice from the Nature Oracle deck, and wishing you all the best of luck and hoping that you find the perfect cave and sanctuary, whether it's internally, whether it's externally, whatever, that you can just take some respite from the world whenever the challenges just become a little bit more than you want to deal with, or when you just look to bring yourself back into balance so that you can go back into enjoying your blessings, your strengths that you have to share with the world. Okay, love and light to all of you, sending much blessings.